I'd like to thank Ray Delaney and PDCA for inviting me to talk and provide this update on Pennsylvania's tick surveillance and testing program. Give you a little bit of background just to bring you up to speed. This is a pretty infant program. We're beginning our third, I consider, season with the collections of adult Ixodes scapularis, but we're still getting our feet wet and we're learning a lot as we go through here. So provide you with just kind of what we do from year to year. So about a year ago, at this time, we started our collections of adult Ixodes scapularis. Every other year, we test for the big three pathogens. However, last year we decided to switch gears a little bit and look for some lesser known pathogens. So we wanted to take a look at, see how the distribution was for Borrelia miyamotoi and deer tick virus in the Commonwealth. So last year, two sites per county needed to be sampled and adults collected from those sites. And since we were looking at two lesser known pathogens and we knew the infection rates were going to be small, we decided to pool those samples. And with a maximum of 10 Ixodes scapularis adults per pool. So we sampled 250 sites, collected 5,558 adults, and our minimum infection rate for Borrelia miyamotoi was 1.23%, and for deer tick virus, it was 0.09%. Here you can see the distribution of our positives that we found, or positive counties. You'll see in the yellow is all of our Borrelia miyamotoi positive sites and counties. Philadelphia came in with a single deer tick virus positive, and York and Wyoming counties collected both Borrelia miyamotoi and deer tick virus. We know with deer tick virus, through the literature, it seems like they can present in hotspots, and we think we might have something in York and Wyoming counties. The minimum infection rate in Wyoming County was 1.27%, quite a bit higher than the state average, and in York County it was 1.20%. So jumping ahead a little bit, in this year's study, which is beginning now, we're going to look at these counties more heavily and try to figure out, is deer tick virus sustained in these counties? And we're also going to look statewide for the presence of DTV. Moving into the spring and summer tick surveillance, we focus heavily on Ixodes scapularis nymphs at this time. So we have 2 collections from every county and two fixed sites per month. And we use a 1 meter square drag, felt drag, when we conduct this surveillance. Something that we didn't do as heavily in 2019 was our non-Ixodes surveillance. This year we wanted to incorporate that a little bit more into our surveillance strategy to see kind of what the off species, the non-Ixodes species were doing. So we wanted to focus on dermacentor species, as well as and see what the dog ticks are doing. We also wanted to look at kind of the tracking and the expansions of Amblyomma americanum in the Commonwealth, and also the expansion and continuance of the Asian longhorn tick, if it would break out of the southeastern part of the state. So as Matt Helwig had described, I was able to piggyback off of the West Nile virus program. So I believe he said there's 41 counties that participate. I got that number wrong. But I was able to provide some grant funding for counties to pick up and do the tick surveillance. So counties were allotted 4 hours a week for 20 weeks to conduct the non-Ixodes and the Ixodes nymphal drags for me. So that left 29 or 27 counties that were left to be covered by the tick program staff. So this year you'll see we've done better. We're learning how to find these small ticks more efficiently. We collected nearly 1,200 nymphal ticks this year from 155 sites throughout the Commonwealth. A goal that we set this year was to find nymphs in every county, and luckily with the help of DEP staff and the county staff, we were able to accomplish that goal. So we've had at least one nymph black-legged tick collected from every county in the Commonwealth. These ticks were tested for the big three pathogens. We looked for Borrelia burgdorferi, Anaplasma phagostophilum, and Babesia macroti. And all of these ticks, all these nymph ticks were tested individually, so we had true infection rates of 26% for Borrelia burgdorferi. Anaplasma comes in at nearly 6%, and Babesia is at 1.4%. Just to show you a comparison from 2019 to this year, like I said, we've become better at what we do at finding these ticks. We've found nearly 400 more ticks this year, and the infection rates are more closely lining up to what we're seeing in the adult Ixodes scapularis populations. So we're obviously working under the assumption that, a nymph has had one blood meal, the adults have 2 blood meals and have 2 chances. So they're running about double what we're seeing for the infection rates for the nymphs, which is expected. Ticks that we did find this year, again, we're heavy on Ixodes scapularis. So they're the majority of the ticks that we did find. Something that we did observe this year that was different from last year, we started seeing larvae in May this year, and that was different from last year. Last year, they didn't show up until July. Again, the peak was in late July into August, like normal. However, it was interesting to see kind of consistent collections of Scapularis larvae beginning in May this year. That's something different that we saw. The Lone Star ticks, we did collect roughly 275 of those. So we did accomplish that goal of finding more of those ticks. And the American dog tick, we found 406. And that distribution, which you'll see in a couple slides from now, expanded. And that was due to our surveillance efforts this year. The Asian longhorn tick, again, mainly concentrated in the southeastern part of the state. However, we did have a couple outliers this year, which I'll talk about. We did find 2 Haemophilus leporus palustris ticks throughout the Commonwealth, and we came up with 1 Amblyomma maculatum, which is the Gulf Coast tick, which is pretty exciting for us to find. Another goal that we had set for the program, and we lucked into one, so I'll discuss that in a little bit more detail later. And we were able to find during one of our nymphal drags an Ixodes cookii tick, and that's the first time we've collected one of those in our drags, and that came from Cambria County. So just go over the distribution of these ticks. Last year we had 7 counties that had the Lone Star tick. This year we were able to find very early in the year a single adult in Indiana County. And then Philadelphia County this year, they didn't collect any in 2019. This year, I believe they collected 13, so that was enough to establish that population in Philadelphia County. Chester and Bucks County, they've had established populations, as well as Erie and Franklin County. And we had a single tick collected in Lancaster County this year. The American dog tick, that was one of our focuses on the non-Ixodes surveillance this summer. We wanted to kind of see, we all know they have a pretty wide distribution, and they're probably in every county in the state. They just tend to sometimes be hard to find, even though you think you're in perfect habitat. So we had a tough time in the northern tier finding Dermacentor. However, it did expand quite a bit from last year. And there's still a pretty wide gaping hole in the western part and the northern part of the state, but we'll try to remedy that in the coming years here as we continue to search for these ticks and establish their populations. So we did have new county records as far as we are concerned. And like I said, this is in our 2nd year, going into our 3rd year of the program. So as far as our database is concerned and we're concerned in our program, these are county records, and the stars designate establishment of those ticks based on CDC's tick surveillance documents that they've put out. As I mentioned, the Asian longhorn tick is, again, mainly concentrated in the southeastern part of the state. We did have an early nymph collected in Dauphin County. Enhanced surveillance around that area came up with nothing. And same kind of thing happened in Lancaster County. where we had 2 nymphs that were collected. However, not enough to document establishment in Lancaster County. And then in late July, and then in August, well, late July, there was a nymph collected in Allegheny County in a park in Pittsburgh. So that piqued our interest. So there was a crew of us, the tick staff and DEP West Nile virus staff and Allegheny County staff went out, and we canvassed the area, and we came up with a single larvae of the Asian longhorn tick. So based on that CDC guidance, 2 life stages, we were able to document establishment in Allegheny County. So we will be spending some more time in that park and other parks in Allegheny County next season to see, if we can come up with other specimens in that county. But that's the furthest west that we have found it in Pennsylvania. So that was pretty interesting. Something else we decided to do this year, we wanted to experiment with dry ice traps. Had a little bit more time to do this kind of work this year as compared to last year. So we borrowed some equipment from the West Nile virus staff, some of the blue igloo cooler, and then the new BG Pro mosquito trap. And that we saw that for the first time last year at PDCA in State College. So we wanted to see if there was a difference in the distribution of carbon dioxide or dry ice coming out of each of these and see which one worked better. We struggled a little bit with the igloo coolers in that the holes would freeze up. So how well it dispensed and for how long, we're not sure. So I think we're probably going to continue with the BG Pro bags going forward. But for these, we cut 24 by 24 inch, half-inch plywood boards, and then we put double-sided carpet tape to when the ticks got on it, they would stick. So we tried this and we left it out for 24 hours, and it seemed to be pretty effective. So we conducted these traps in Erie County, Chester County, Franklin, Bucks, and Warren counties. Erie and Chester have known established populations of Amblyomma americanum. Franklin County also does, so we wanted to see kind of what that population was doing in Franklin County. Bucks, our main focus there was the Asian longhorn tick. They have a very high established population on a state park in Bucks County. So we wanted to see how effective this might be on the Asian longhorn tick. So here you can see the species breakdown of what we found. So we found, a decent number of Amblyomma americanum, which is what we were targeting when we were doing this. Now we would set these traps, we'd set 4 every time we go out. We'd set them in open sun, we'd set them in shade, we'd set them in partial shade, we'd set them in shade with no vegetation, or we'd set them in shade with vegetation. So we're just trying to figure out what's the best mechanism to how to set these traps and be the most efficacious in the time spent out there and trapping the majority of the ticks. So you can see we were pretty successful with the Asian longhorn tick in Bucks County. I attend the call from USDA about the Asian longhorn tick every month, and a couple months ago there was talk about dry ice traps and this tick, and so learned a little bit on that call. So I think we might alter some of our methods and see if we can enhance the trapping of those ticks. You can see we found 3 dog ticks. Something I found interesting, we found 13 Exodia nymphs on these traps. And then we found our 1 Gulf Coast ticks, the Amblyomma immaculatum. And that was from a dry ice trap in Franklin County, which was very interesting to us. And you'll be hearing more about this tick this afternoon and its range expansion. So we know that this tick is pretty prevalent in the southeastern part of the state, but it is expanding. In recent years, it's become established in Delaware, Maryland, and most recently in Connecticut. So this is one of our goals, to try to find this tick this year. And lo and behold, we found it in Franklin County in an area where it didn't seem like it fits. However, there it was. Now there is some historical collections in Pennsylvania, and this was reported in the paper that was put out about 1.5 years ago from Penn State University, and they document collections in 1967 through 2004. However, I believe most of those collections were of the passive type, for people sending ticks in to be identified at the Frost Museum. I could be wrong with that, but I believe this is probably one of the first ticks that we've collected in the Commonwealth where we've actually had targeted surveillance. Maybe not for this tick, but we've been out dragging and we found it. So that was a pretty good find for us, even though it was just a single one. We went back, we drug quite a bit, 2 more times, and this is the only specimen that we could come up with. So why are we concerned about this tick, which I know you'll hear more about this afternoon? It has veterinary implications. However, it does transmit the human pathogen Rickettsia parkeri, and this is a close cousin to the causative agent that causes Rocky Mountain spotted fever. So we're going to keep a close eye out for this tick and see if we can come up with some more in the coming years. So now we're getting into our surveillance season for the adult Ixodes scapularis. It began in October 1, so we're still in the very beginning of this trapping for the surveillance for Ixodes scapularis adults. Same thing, we're at 50 ticks minimum from every county and a minimum of 2 sites per county again. And most of these sites for the nymphal collections and the adult collections are in high use areas or high public areas. So we can kind of develop, a risk model for what's going on out there. We've decided to test this year as our every other year. So we're testing for the big 3 pathogens. However, we are going to test for deer tick virus this year. And all these ticks are going to be tested individually. So we can get a better idea of kind of even the infection rates for the Ixodes scapularis for the big 3 pathogens, if we can see any changes in the past 2 years. We don't think we're going to see much, but there's always that potential. But we're really concerned about deer tick virus. Pennsylvania has 2 human cases this year, so we're going to focus on those counties, as well as counties where we've found deer tick virus in the past, to try to enhance that surveillance and see, if there's anything to that hotspot theory that's in the literature. So all these ticks will be tested individually, so we'll see. I'll be able to present this data to you next year at this time at this conference. So with that, I'll close in acknowledging the County West Nile virus staff who helped tremendously with this project, DEP's West Nile and Black Fly staff, as well as the laboratory staff for all the testing that they conduct for us, Leah Lind, who is our liaison from the Department of Health, and then of course Holly Chapman and Brooke Coder, who work in the tick program, and they're the ones that do put on a lot of miles to make this program work. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Andy Kyle and his support that he's provided to me over the years. I worked in the mosquito program and now the tick program. So I wish him well in his retirement. And it won't be the same in the office, or, well, hopefully we'll see him at PVCA, but won't be the same without Andy Kyle in the office. That is all I have.